Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the Doctor for the Republic, Dr. Right, Dr. Nasser Sheikh. Nasser, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
Hey, Rick, glad to be here with you once again. And let's just begin by saying, hey, it's just another great day to be alive and well and free and living in the United States of America. It is still the greatest country in the history of the world, even though we're being bombarded by the alt-left,
yes,
the left-stream media, and the Democratic State Party-controlled media. We are still the United States of America, where everybody is still trying to come, Rick. They're still coming here because of the American dream.
Because the American dream, the American way, the American success. However, Nasser, there are some people out there who are not happy with it. They're not happy with the success, or at least how the makeup of our country, the makeup of our government. Chuck Schumer has been doing a little bit of crying in his beer lately.
He's giving us the old Chuck U. Schumer is what he's doing.
You just cracked yourself up there.
Anyways, you're right. I mean, if it's not enough as we're being attacked on every front, they just can't play by the rules of the Constitution. And as we were discussing before we came on air, the left and the alt-left has done very, very well with this Constitution, using the Constitution against itself, basically, by basically saying it's a living, breathing document and it needs to be interpreted by the judiciary.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. You've got these judges that get appointed and they think they know the law better than everybody else. They put facts, feelings, and emotions into it and they make their rulings. So what does Mr. Chuck Schumer want to do now, Rick? He's saying it's not fair. It's not fair that big states only have 2 senators and little states have the same amount.
Well,
he wants to make the Senate, you know what he wants to make the House of Lords? We have a House of Lords and a House of Commons here. He wants to make our House of Lords, the Senate, be a mini House of Representatives.
Yeah, well, okay, if he says it's unfair for big states to only have 2 senators, maybe it's unfair for small states only to have 1 member in the House of Representatives. I mean, maybe Delaware deserves to have as many members in the House of Representatives as California does. There you go, Chuck. And it gets me, Nasser, this experiment in the Republic.
There we go.
Well, it's not a democracy, ladies.
It's not a democracy.
We dealt with that yesterday. It's not a democracy. This experiment in this republic has worked so well over the last 247 or 8 years or whatever it is, that everyone in the world wants to come here. We're having a massive immigration problem here that everyone wants to come here. They all want a piece of the American dream. They want a slice of the apple pie, the Chevrolet. They want what we have. If it's so bad, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Ocasio-Cortez, why are so many people want to come here? And if you're so unhappy here, why don't you take your misery somewhere else? Just pack up and take your misery somewhere else. You've done very well under the system, Chuck Schumer. Nancy Pelosi has made millions while she's been in the House. Just pack up and go. Retire. Go to a South Pacific island and buy it and run how you want it. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. And let's piggyback this conversation, Nasser, with Chuck Schumer wanting larger states to have more senators, with the fact that the liberal left have another stupid idea, and that's to pack the Supreme Court. They say 9 members of the Supreme Court is not enough. There should be 15, and that every president should appoint 3. Well, wait a minute. We're supposed to have 3 equal branches of government, and no Ocasio-Cortez. It's not the Senate, the House, and the presidency. It's the judicial, the legislative and the executive. Why should the executive branch have more power over? This is something important there, Nasser. Maybe
Go.
you could fill our audience in. Why?
I didn't want the phone to ring while we were talking.
All right, that's good. So why should the executive hold power over the legislative by having the authority for them to willy-nilly just appoint 3 judges? Okay? Again, our Constitution has worked.
Correct.
What the Founding Fathers has set up back in 1789 or 87, whenever they came up with our Constitution, that has worked. Proof that it has worked. This is the most successful country on God's blue-green planet. And if you don't like it, pack up and leave. Pack up and
You're
leave.
right. And listen, we have not always been thrilled. The Supreme Court is not infallible.
No.
It has made some horrendous decisions. We know that.
Yeah,
but it has made it's made some great decisions, and then it's made some decisions. But that's how this republic has survived.
Indeed.
As you were talking, before. And here's another thing: the left. There's so much about equality of outcome, right? That's what they're about, equality of outcome. You know what surprises me? Why is it that California, that's not equal? They get more electoral votes than Delaware, like you're saying, or New Jersey for that matter.
Yes.
Why should California get, I believe it's 55 versus Delaware's minuscule, how many does Delaware have? 3?
I believe 3.
I think 3. I mean, I think Delaware should be up in arms and say, what, California's better than us? I mean, come on.
You're opening up a great discussion here, Nasser, because there's another movement on the left that they want to eliminate the Electoral College. They want a direct vote of the presidency. And what would happen at that point is states like Delaware would have no say. States like Rhode Island would have no say. States like North Carolina would have no say. That the decision would be basically made between California, New York, Illinois, and Texas and Florida. Those 5 states.
You're correct.
For a president to be elected would only need to carry those 5 states. So all the other 45 states, there are 50 states, not 57, Barack Obama.
Correct.
So the other 45 states, nobody's vote would count there. Nobody's vote would count. And again, the wisdom of our founding fathers to give us the Electoral College, their wisdom is just unbelievable in my opinion for them to come up with that system. That small states would have a say just as the bigger states do. How about this also, Nasser? Let's break up California. Let's break up California into 4 states, okay? Because basically what you have is you have the Los Angeles area and its large population, the San Francisco area and its large population dominating the state, absolutely dominating the state of California now. So,
and don't forget where all the laws are being made out in Sacramento.
Right, and then you got to figure these states like California, like New York, and like New Jersey, these liberal states want to let illegals, non-residents, vote here. Where in the world can you go, Nasser, other than the United States, and you have a vote? Where can you do it in France, Germany, Great Britain? No. Pakistan, can you go to Pakistan and vote? No. India, can you go to India and vote? No. All right.
And they've got voter ID there.
They got voter ID. Well, I love what they did in Iraq when people went to vote, dipped their thumb in a bottle of ink so people can't come back and re-vote. I think this motor voter law is a disaster, should be eliminated. Right. Early voting, I think, is a disaster, should be eliminated. I think there should be real controls on absentee ballots. And I think that we should go back to saying, hey, okay, if you're a convicted felon, you have sacrificed your right to vote.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is the way the left, they can't win on elections. I mean, no. they and when they lose, they use the power of the legislature, the power of the judiciary to change. I mean, people brought this thing up and said, yes, we won the presidency, but it still seems on some of these other things, we keep losing or fighting backward.
They go judge shopping. They
go judge shopping.
They find a liberal judge, and we've seen several examples during President Trump's term in office, how the liberals have used the courts to stop him. Hey, Nasser, believe it or not, it is break time. After the break, we'll let you know who our guests are. As usual, we have a great lineup. But this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. I'm joined today by Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh. Love to say this. Today's show, like all our shows, is brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Nasser and I will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Okay, ready to go with guest?
Ready to go.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast of our shows, and Nasser, we have one website, one prime website now that carries both our radio show and our TV show, along with a lot of great articles, a lot of great information. So if you'd like to see rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Our radio shows there, our TV shows there, and as I mentioned, a lot of great articles and information. Nasser, who will we be speaking with today?
Our first guest, Rick, is going to be Michael Berry. He's a Deputy General Counsel and Director of Military Affairs for First Liberty Institute. He's going to be talking about a very, very important decision for all of the First Amendment rights of the United States, basically about the Peace Cross ruling.
Right.
Could be a decisive moment for religious tolerance. Our second guest is Inez Stepman. He's a senior policy analyst. She is a senior policy analyst. As soon as I said that, the Independent Women's Forum. You never know. You could have somebody.
Well, you're supposed to get these things and read them in advance, Nasser. That's why I sent them to you.
And she's going to be talking about her article, "The Biggest Higher Education Scam Isn't Hollywood Fraud. It's Academia Itself," and that was in the Federalist. So that's by Ms. Inez Stepman. Inez.
She
Stepman.
pronounces it Inez.
And finally, we have Roger Aronoff. He's the Executive Director and Editor of Citizens Commission on National Security. He's going to be talking about how the state of the U.S.-Israeli alliance is still very strong. So once again, 3 great guests, 3 different topics that are really churning in the news today.
All right. So let's talk about New Zealand. Everybody else is Nasser. Everybody else is giving their 2 cents about it. I guess we can too. And of course, this deals with, and I also wanted to get your reaction. This was a double shooting at 2 mosques in New Zealand. Over 50 people were killed. And now the Prime Minister of New England wants, guess what? Stricter gun control. First, Nasser, I wanted to get your views of the mosque shooting. You being a Muslim yourself.
Well, first of all, just as any time, whenever evil is evil, no matter where it's committed. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter who commits it, whether it's a domestic terrorist, an international terrorist, whether it's a white nationalist or a white supremacist or a black supremacist or any color supremacist or any color terrorist or any religious terrorist. That's right. Anything out there. So prayers and, our condolences and, our thoughts are with all the people that unfortunately, were killed in this evil act, and those who are still, suffering some of the consequences. And, this guy left a manifesto, and supposedly his whole thing is to bring down the United States. His whole hope is exactly what's happening with New Zealand Prime Minister. I believe her name is Jacinda Ardern, and she's encouraging now gun owners to voluntarily hand over their firearms. And this is how it all starts everywhere, please, can you do this thing? And the overreaction, and like we were talking before, it's not the guns that kill, it's people using guns that kill.
Yeah.
Okay, a gun never misfire. No. A gun was never sitting there on a table or sitting in a cabinet, okay, and started shooting all by itself. It's never happened before. There has to be a human being on the other end of it pulling that trigger. And unfortunately, all the gun laws are in place. New Zealand has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. And yet this still happened because you know what? You're not going to be able to make sure. You can't control evil all the time. It's impossible, Rick. It's just not possible.
Well, you're right, Nasser. And, you mentioned New Zealand has strict gun laws. Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And yet every day we hear about all these shootings that go on in Chicago. Nasser, probably every day there's a gun show going on somewhere in the country. Certainly on weekends, there's gun shows going on all over the country. You never hear of any killings there. You never hear of any violence there. Guns don't kill. Violent, evil people kill. Violent, evil people are what commits these horrendous crimes. And let's talk for a minute about evil. Now, sir, I'm in the belief that evil is a liberal creation. And I'll repeat that. Evil is a liberal creation. And why is that? Well, the liberal thing is, you can do anything you want, and it's within your rights. You can say whatever you want. You can be as disrespectful as you want. Oh, you're a bad boy. We're going to give you a slap on the wrist. I don't think that these horrendous acts, or horrendous acts in general, are committed by conservatives, true conservatives. Because I believe that conservatives have a certain morality that the left and liberals do not do.
Bingo.
True conservatives believe in a God. True conservatives believe in a heaven and a hell. True conservatives believe, judge a man by the content of the character, not the color of their skin or their religion or anything. True conservatives believe, treat others as you would have them treat you. Evil is a liberal creation.
And they use that creation.
The more liberal this country has gotten, the more laxed in our laws, in our society, the more evil has been perpetrated, the more crime that has been perpetrated. Y'all want to get rid of evil? You stop liberalism in its tracks. You bring our country back to the Judeo-Christian ethics, morals, and character that our founding fathers created it to be.
You're so right. You're so right, Rick. And this is what the left uses. They legitimize violence. Look what's happening with Black Lives Matter. Look what's happening on our college campi, where if a conservative, I think Campus Reform went out and they basically asked students at various different universities. They said, can you give us an example? He said, the guy had a $100 bill. He said, if you can give me an instance that you heard of ever that a conservative group stopped a liberal person from coming to speak on a campus, I'll give you $100. Nobody. They must have asked about 100 students. Nobody could come up with even a single answer. But the left uses it with their authoritarian ways because you know what? They don't want diversity. They want diversity, but they do not want diversity of thought. And they'll use violence.
And another thing that really aggravates me, they want to be respected. Well, you have to be responsible. You have to be a responsible individual. That's how you gain respect from others. Not demand it.
Correct.
Not protest for it. You earn it. You want respect, you earn respect. We hear a lot, Nasser, about sexual abuse of women these days too. And the Me Too movement. Okay. And again, I say it's liberalism that created the cause for the Me Too movement, in as much as it's this liberalism that says, you can go out and you can be sexually promiscuous. You can go out and expect sex from another person. You can go out and if somebody's not giving it to you, you can take it for yourself. That's a liberalism. You want to stop the cause of the Me Too movement? Stop liberalism. Stop liberal ideas. Bring our country back to God. Don't fight God. Bring our country back to God. Hey, Nasser, we got to take our break and, of course, get our first guest on. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. I want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster, Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and also seen on the AUN television network in California. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Michael Berry. He's the Deputy General Counsel and Director of Military Affairs for First Liberty Institute. We're going to be talking about an issue of the Peace Cross ruling could be a decisive monument for religious tolerance. You want tolerance? Let's start with religious tolerance. Don't go away. Dr. Nasser Sheikh and I will be right back with our guest.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty.
Liberty Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and on the other side, we have our executive producer, Rick Trader. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, well, we have one website that you can go to, and you can hear the audio version as well as the TV version on the AUN TV Broadcasting Network in California. And that website is www.ccrshow.com. That's www.ccrshow.com. Also, please like, friend, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Well, we have a very special guest today. His name is Michael Berry. He's a Deputy General Counsel and the Director for Military Affairs for First Liberty Institute. He joined First Liberty in 2013 after serving 7 years on active duty as an attorney with the United States Marine Corps. Among Mr. Berry's numerous positions within the Marine Corps, he deployed to Afghanistan in 2008 and from 2009 to 2012. Michael has also served as an adjunct professor of law at the United States Naval Academy. Michael, welcome to the Conserve Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
Well, listen, before we get into your article, I just wanted to, from the bottom of my heart, and also I know Rick will chime in as well, we want to thank you so much for your service to our country and for watching our backs, during your deployment for you and your fellow brethren in the United States Marine Corps. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. It was definitely an honor to serve.
Well, listen, you're fighting the fight again, basically, on the home front here. And the article that you wrote, the Peace Cross ruling, could be a decisive moment for religious toleration. Give us a sense as to sort of, a lot of people don't understand, this is the Peace Cross that's out in Prince George County, I believe, in Baltimore, Maryland. And this could have some huge ramifications for the First Amendment. Give us a sense of what's going on and an idea to our listeners and viewers out there as to why this is so significant, why we need to pay attention to this ruling.
Well, really, I mean, if you want to break down the ruling into two separate pieces, I think that's what makes most sense for people. And the first one is that, obviously, at the heart of this issue in this case is really the memorial itself. It's the Bladensburg World War I Veterans Memorial. It was put up in 1925 to honor 49 men from Prince George's County, Maryland, which is right there on the D.C. Maryland border. The monument itself is only about 5 miles or so from the Supreme Court building. And it was put there, like I said, in 1925 to honor 49 men from Prince George's County who served in World War I and ultimately paid the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of our freedom and our country. And so this memorial and monument to those 49 men stood there really, unblemished for decades. And it wasn't until, actually for almost a century it stood there without, any issue or legal challenge. And then a few short years ago, an organization called the American Humanist Association filed a lawsuit saying that it had to be removed or torn down because it violates the Constitution, because in their opinion, the memorial happens to be in the shape of a cross, and that might make somebody, feel offended. And so that would violate the Constitution, according to them. The crazy thing about that is that the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal appeals court, actually agreed with them and ruled that the memorial is unconstitutional and has to be removed or torn down.
Well, I want to get into a little bit because I guess the federal courts, I guess they basically used something in terms of, it was let me have this thing here. It was the Supreme Court case of 1971, Lemon versus Kurtzman. And they used basically language from that if the statute is unconstitutional for a reasonable observer perceives it as a government endorsement of religion. Now, before I get into this thing here, I just want to let everyone know, Rick knows, everyone knows, first and foremost, I'm an American. I also happen to be second-generation Muslim. I have passed by that cross, in Baltimore. And if I would ever stop there and to get out and whatever, I would never in a million years ever think that cross was telling me that, I need to change my religion, or that it's somehow, endorsing religion. I don't even know how these people even get there. And this is coming, as I said, from an American who's a second-generation Muslim. So I just think they're completely wrong. Now, in order, a reasonable observer, I'm a reasonable observer.
That was actually going to be my response, is that you must not be a very reasonable observer then, according to the Court of Appeals. You must be unreasonable, because that's really, and so that's kind of part two of what I was saying. So part one is really the question immediately before the court is, what do we do about this actual memorial itself, the Bladensburg Memorial? And I think and I was in the courtroom that day in the Supreme Court, watching the argument, paying attention carefully to the justices and to the attorneys, and I think most people would agree that, you'd probably get a 9-0, maybe 8-1 or 7-2 decision saying the Bladensburg Memorial itself is constitutional and it's not going to be torn down or removed. But then really the much broader question in the case, which gets to what you're talking about, is, okay, what do we do about all the other memorials that dot our national landscape, whether they're in Arlington National Cemetery, whether they're in our own cities and towns and counties, etc. And what gets at that question is exactly what you're talking about, the Lemon Test. It's called the Lemon Test. It's named after the Supreme Court case, Lemon versus Kurtzman. And so that's the case, and that's the legal test that has been used now since 1971. So going on, 40 years or so approximately, to say exactly what you said, which is a reasonable observer who sees something and says, gosh, that looks to me like the government is endorsing somebody, a religious belief that I don't agree with. I find that to be offensive. I'm harmed by that. And, that harmed in the emotional sense or psychological sense, not in the, and that's another interesting thing about the Lemon Test is, and Justice Gorsuch pointed this out, there's really no other area of law where somebody is allowed to go into court and file a lawsuit because of a perceived psychological or emotional harm. In every other area of the law, if you or I wanted to sue somebody for doing something to us, we would have to show that we had suffered physically, financially, etc. And we couldn't just simply say, I saw something or I was exposed to something that I didn't like, because the natural response to that would be, well, then turn the other way, look the other way, right? I mean, that's kind of the normal human, that's what the reasonable person would respond with. But in this area of the law, since 1971, people have been able to go into court and say, I think that's endorsing religion that I don't like, a religious belief that I don't agree with. Remove it. And that's, and what a lot of people got really upset about with the Bladensburg case is, wait a minute, the memorial is not even there to memorialize Christianity or religion. It's there for 49 actual human beings who served and died in World War I. Exactly. So it's not even a Christian memorial or a religious memorial. It's actually in the work, and we actually saw that some of the descendants of some of those 49 men who served submitted friend of the court briefs and said, no, this is not just a generic memorial. This is actually, in one case, it was her great uncle. She said, this is my great uncle's grave marker, because his body was never returned from France.
Wow.
And this is all we have. This is all we have to remember my great uncle.
Well, Michael, I mean, we're going to be going to a break here shortly, but I want you to ask this, and I'm going to real quick, is that I'm not an attorney, and obviously you are, but it says in Lemon versus Kurtzman, is that that the United States found that passing of any state laws that establish a religious body is in direct violation of the United States Constitution. So are they actually trying to claim that the cross is a religious body?
Yeah, I think what the other side was arguing there was that the cross is, because it is the preeminent symbol of a religion, namely Christianity, that's its primary message and effect. That the state of Maryland, and if anybody's been to Maryland recently, I used to live in Maryland when I taught at the Naval Academy. I can tell you, Maryland is about as far from establishing Christianity as a state religion as you can get. Okay, I guarantee you that the government of the Maryland legislature has no interest in doing anything to promote Christianity. So, the fact that people would make that argument to me is dubious to start with, but that's where people have for years now been pulling their hair out over this Lemon Test, because it leads to these absurd results. And in fact, that's what. And we can certainly talk about this after the break, that's what some of the justices really, focused on during the oral argument is, okay, what do we do about the lemon test? You know, is it time to, as Justice Gorsuch says, is it time to thank lemon for its service and send it on its way? So, and I think there is definitely some optimism, some reason for optimism that this terrible legal test that may have been born of good intentions, but has really led to really absurd results that just causes lower court judges and people across the country to go into fits, trying to figure out what are we supposed to do.
Michael, they're telling me here in my ear that we've got to take a quick break, but we'd like to hold you over for another segment. Do you have some time for us?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, we're here speaking with Michael Berry, who's the Deputy General Counsel and the Director of Military Affairs for First Liberty Institute, and his article, Peace Cross Ruling Could Be a Decisive Moment for Religious Toleration. Well, listen, folks, you're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. I'm your host, Nasser Sheikh, and on the other side, I've got our executive producer, Rick Trader. We can be heard around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and on AM/FM 24/7. And as we said before, we're broadcasting now on the AUN TV network in California. Well, we've got to take a few minutes away for our sponsors to pay some bills, and I'll send it back to our executive producer, Rick Trader.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right it's too late.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share.
It's freedom from insurance.
At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down.
We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and our guest is Michael Barry. He's a Deputy General Counsel and Director of Military Affairs for First Liberty Institute. Michael, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It's good to continue on.
We're discussing your article that you wrote, Peace Cross ruling could be a decisive monument for religious tolerance. And again, I wanted to start out by echoing what Nasser said in the first segment. Thank you so much for your service to our country and the service that you are continue to do for our country through First Liberty. Michael, religion is under attack in this country, which blows my mind, because it all goes back to this idea of separation of church and state. Goes back, and the argument for this goes back to a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote years after our Constitution was signed. Can you foresee that this is going to be a case that's finally going to put this idiot idea to rest? Because it was, if you want to go by precedent, Michael, let's use our founding fathers as a precedent. How even in the days before our Declaration of Independence, during the First and Second Continental Congress, or whenever Congress met, they started with a prayer. And in many instances, they held their meetings not in Independence Hall, but in church facilities around Philadelphia. I mean, Michael, if that's not a precedent of what the Founding Fathers had in mind, my gosh, what is?
No, you're exactly right. And ironically, or perhaps not ironically, but when the Constitutional Congress, the Continental Congress, when they first met to actually draft the Constitution and actually authored the words of the First Amendment, right? So the First Amendment that prohibits Congress from establishing a religion as a formal national religion, and then also obviously prohibiting protecting the free exercise thereof. Right. When they actually met to write those words, they prayed before they met. So surely, if they gathered together as a government body to pray before writing the First Amendment, then surely they thought the First Amendment would permit governments to do that kind of thing. And, to fast forward, decades, over a century later to 1971, and you ask the question, is this case finally the opportunity to move past this notion of so-called separation of church and state? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it will be the end-all, be-all to getting rid of the separation of church and state, but I certainly think it.
If not, can you foresee a time where this idea is going to be brought to the Supreme Court?
I certainly think that this case, the Bladensburg case, has an opportunity to put a massive dent in that theory and in that notion. And the reason is because, the justices themselves seemed to be, it's very difficult for anybody to predict what the court is going to do just based on oral argument. It's always a dangerous proposition for any attorney to say, I think the court's going to do X just based on oral argument. But the types of questions they were asking indicate that, they do seem to be ready to move on. Because here's the thing: some of the justices pointed out that we haven't really even used lemon in a while on a lot of cases where you would think that we would use it. And so doesn't that indicate that we don't really like it anymore? And if we don't like it, then why do we keep it around? And that's when, as I mentioned earlier, Justice Gorsuch said, yeah, isn't it really time to thank lemon for its service and send it on its way, send it packing? So we're really hopeful that that's the direction that the court goes, but, it's anybody's guess at this point.
Michael, take us back to 1971. Two questions. What was the makeup of the Supreme Court at that time? And what did this lemon law or this lemon test, what was the backstory of it? Why was it brought to the court?
Oh, gosh, now you're putting me on the spot.
On the spot. Sorry about that.
No. The makeup of the court back then, it was what we call the Burger Court, right? So you had Chief Justice Warren Burger, and it was actually a kind of an obscure case, I guess. It came out of the states of Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, and they had passed laws in those states that provided that the state would pay for certain aspects of non-secular, non-public education, so private religious education, right, in those states, and that some of that would come out of the state coffers. And a parent of a child who was in the public school system said, "Well, wait a minute, why are you taking my money, my taxpayer money, and giving it to private religious schools? That's unconstitutional."
All right, well, let me stop you there if I could.
Yeah.
Because I want to get to this point. How much government money went into the construction of the Bladensburg Cross? How much government influence went into its construction? Because I'm reading your article, and it says, in 1925, Gold Star Mothers and the American Legion erected a memorial to honor 49 men.
That's right.
I mean, I don't see any government money there.
Well, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but the really fascinating thing about the Bladensburg Cross case is a memorial case is actually that when it was constructed, just as you said, it was partially funded by Gold Star Mothers, and the American Legion helped with the rest of it. And it was on American Legion property, so it wasn't even on government property. It was private property on a private memorial on private property. So then people asked, well, how did it end up on government property in the state of Maryland's land? Well, as the national capital area began to expand rapidly in the post-World War II years, with the growth of Washington, D.C. and the federal government and the size and everything, all the traffic, the vehicle traffic coming in and out of D.C., the roads weren't big enough, so they had to expand the highways to accommodate all that additional traffic. So through this thing that we all know and love called eminent domain, the state of Maryland took the land from the American Legion. So the government actually it was a land grab by the government to take the land from the American Legion, and it now became state of Maryland land. So when the memorial was put up, it wasn't even put up on government property. It became government property through eminent domain. But kind of one of the neat things about it was when they were building constructing and expanding those highways, I guess they just couldn't bring themselves to tear down this memorial back then because of what it stood for. So they put the memorial in the median, and they built the highway around the memorial. And so, it's one of those things you can't make this up, that they had enough honor and respect and courtesy back then to hey, we're not going to touch this thing. This is in honor of 49 men. Why would we tear it down? And yet here we are, half a century later, we don't have that same level of, to go back to an earlier point, tolerance and respect, that, now you got to file a lawsuit to have it torn down. And so that's where we are today.
Well, Michael Berry, you're a lawyer. I'm sure you remember something called the Dred Scott case. That was a Supreme Court ruling. That was bad law. I'm thinking that this lemon law is a lemon, and hopefully at some time, and it won't be in the too distant future, that this whole idea of separation of church and state is going to be settled. That's my hopes and prayers. Michael, but we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. You folks do a lot of good work down there at First Liberty. Could you please tell our audience how they could follow what you do and what First Liberty does?
Well, the easiest way is to go to firstliberty.org, firstliberty.org, and you can get all the information you want to know about every case that we've got. We've got multiple cases at the Supreme Court right now and various other courts around the country. And we're a national religious liberty law firm, and we're dedicated to protecting and defending religious liberty for all Americans. So if that's something that you care about your Constitution and your First Amendment rights, help us and support what we do. We're 100% donor funded, and we provide all of our legal representation free of charge.
There you go. So folks out there, if you don't like what the ACLU does, that they're one of the principal fighters of anything to do with religion in this country. They're the one. There's a little town not too far called Pittman, New Jersey. The ACLU went into that town a few years ago and threatened the town because they put up a banner celebrating Christmas across the main street down there. It was the people of Pittman, New Jersey, who stopped the ACLU. You can stop the ACLU, and one of the ways that you can do it, and I'm going to send a check, is to First Liberty. Michael Berry, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, God bless, and please keep us informed.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
All right. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasser Sheikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be talking about the biggest higher education scam is not Hollywood fraud, it's academia itself. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled. It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and on the other side we have our executive producer, Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show, you can check out our website. It is www.ccrshow.com. That's www.ccrshow.com. And you'll be able to hear the audio version as well as watch the TV version, which is being televised on the AUN TV network in California. Also, please like, friend, and follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Well, we have our next guest. It is Inez Stepman. She's a senior policy analyst for the Independent Women's Forum. She's worked in education policy for many years, and prior to joining IWF, she was the Director of Education and Workforce Development at the American Legislative Exchange Council. She's also the author of numerous policy papers, which talked about the different aspects of education policy across the United States. Her thoughts on education policy have been published in numerous outlets like the Washington Examiner, the Orange County Register, The Hill, and so many others. She's also testified as an expert in state legislatures across the country, as well as, among many other things, she's also a senior contributor to The Federalist. Inez, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks so much for having me and for that very long and ponderous description of everything I've ever done in my life.
Well, you know, we love it when we have guests like yourselves come on because it gives us a chance for us to learn different things because there's so many different policy things that are out there, and sort of it's kind of nice to have our listeners, and they're always wondering about, you know, what's the latest thing that's in the news. And you basically been talking about something, which is this whole thing with the Hollywood hypocrites out there in elitist Hollywood, basically exercising, you know, their money, their influence, and everything else in what I call country club America versus, you know, just regular country class American folks. And your article, the biggest higher education scam isn't Hollywood fraud, it's academia itself. So give us a sense of actually, you know, what's going on. And, you know, why should we be taking this so seriously?
Sure. So I think there was a deal, right, offered by universities when they came hat in hand to the government in several different levels, right? The federal government underwrites nearly all of the student loans in this country. That's $1.5 trillion in student loans, many of which will ultimately not be repaid, and the taxpayers will be left with the dance card for a lot of that. Plus, there's $75 billion in overt support for universities through various programs, research grants, and so on. And then if you're talking about state universities, there's the additional layer of state support, you know, state tax support that goes to some of these public universities. And the reason that Americans have been willing to support the university system was that they told us two different claims, right? Sometimes overlapping, sometimes not. But the first claim is that they were producing wiser citizens, right? That it was worth the investment to produce wiser citizens who would make better voting, more informed voting decisions, right? The second one was that they were going to be the ticket to the middle class and to the upper class, to good jobs, to business creation, to being entrepreneurial, all of these things which are good for the economy. So one claim was that they were going to be, making wiser citizens. The other one is that they were going to be contributing to the economy, or the graduates were going to be contributing to the economy. And that all was why the U.S. taxpayer should make this massive investment. It's not clear that universities in this country as a whole are delivering on either one of those promises. In fact, it seems like what's happened is they've become a sorting mechanism for the elite, right? And that's why we see this kind of scandal, right? Nobody is talking about the fact that these kids would probably fail out of university. You know why that is? The kids who got in because their parents paid anywhere from $500,000 to $2 million or whatever to get them into a university that they couldn't get into on merit. Nobody's wondering about these kids failing out because they wouldn't have. Because the entire game is getting through the door in universities, and oftentimes, actually getting the degree or what you learn is very, very secondary to that elite sorting mechanism. That's all well and great. If people want to pay $50,000 to get the stamp of a primatur from Harvard saying, I'm an elite and I'm going to run the world, then that's fine. But it's not clear to me at all why the U.S. taxpayer should be in the business of subsidizing that kind of elite, mechanism. In fact, it's quite regressive to ask somebody, a middle-class family making $60,000 to subsidize these degrees.
Exactly. Now, on to a more important and even pressing question, and that is, perhaps you could answer this question. Do you think that Aunt Becky is going to have Jesse Kostopoulos out there just before the verdict comes down and shout into the crowd, "Have mercy"? I mean, is that going to be something?
Well, this is kind of, and people have made this observation. This is almost the nouveau riche way of doing this, right? If you have real legacy money, you just put your name on a building, right? That's all legal. Yes. That's a legal form of bribery to get your kid into these universities. Look, it's fun to make fun of these people. They're kind of fun to hate. But fundamentally, I think the bigger scandal here is not that somebody wasted, $500,000 trying to get their daughter into USC through bribery, right? That'll go through the criminal system as it should. But the fact that we're all paying right. the university system on the basis that they're somehow creating wiser citizens or producing, higher earning potential individuals by what they teach there. And it turns out that a lot of that, the fact that people with college degrees do make more money than people without college degrees increasingly seems to be able to be chalked up to the fact that it's an elite sorting system. They're elite coming in, they get that stamp, that's worth something to other elite folks. And that's, then they come out. They don't have to learn a thing. They certainly don't have to take core Western civilization classes. And it's not clear to me why we're writing these massive checks, especially when 2/3 of the country doesn't have a bachelor's degree. How is it fair to ask somebody without a bachelor's degree to underwrite the women's studies degree of somebody who's the child of of somebody who's wealthy or one of these Hollywood elites? It's not fair to ask the average U.S. taxpayer to underwrite this system.
You're right. And here's the thing, is that this is an absolute money-making scheme or money-making scam. I mean, like you talk about pyramid scams, where here's a college that is guaranteed to get that money from the federal government. They've got a secondary and a tertiary, group of people, like you said, those Americans that when the student loans default, they're on the hook for it. And you know what? Why isn't it that the colleges don't have some skin in the game too? Why not make the colleges, like some people are talking about, co-sign for some of these loans? If they say that it's such a great investment in these students and these children, and they're going to come out with their degrees, and they're going to be making top dollar, wouldn't it make sense for these colleges to go ahead and co-sign? But you're not going to see that happening because obviously they've got their pockets, entrenched with, Washington and the legislatures out there. So, I mean, give a sense of this whole thing that you scratch my back, I'll scratch mine. I mean, there's legal bribery, like you said. You have a building, you pay, $1 million, $2 million, you put your name up there, or a legacy, and kids go in that way. But, for others, like you said, for those that are making 60, 70, they don't have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of insight. They don't have that kind of, access to, have their kids' test scores, being proctored by somebody else or paying that kind of money either, correct?
Sure, and it does. So I think part of the problem here is, again, that federal intervention in this system has made it more expensive for everyone, right? So every time we increase the average loan amount, we increase the cap on the loan amount that the federal government is loaning out, because the federal government loaning out this money, it's not the private market. In fact, they've totally cried it out, the private market. The vast majority of student loans are underwritten and handed out by the federal government. And so when they do that, of course, you can imagine very easily. So, several decades ago, there was a cap. It was, I'm making up the numbers right now, but let's roll with this. It was $20,000, right? The most you can borrow to go to college from the federal government is $20,000. I mean, the universities all instantaneously raised their rates to $20,000. In fact, they raised it to $22,000 because everybody's got $2,000 they can scrape together for college. So why not, right? So then the feds raise it to $22,000 the next year, because that's what college costs that year. And you can see how this kind of upward pressure actually has allowed, this kind of federal intervention has created the pressure that's allowed universities to raise their tuition rates year after year after year, well above inflation, right? This is not just the fact that $1 is worth less today than it was 30 years ago. Now you're talking about a college education that is, $40,000, $50,000, sometimes $60,000 a year. And that also eliminates the possibility, by the way, to work your way through college. I think there is a generational disconnect among conservatives sometimes who say, why don't these kids just work their way through college? Well, yeah, that makes sense if you're paying $10,000 in tuition, then absolutely, or $20,000 even. But if tuition's $50,000 plus you need something to live on, you're asking high school kids to make a middle class living right out of high school, right, while going to school full time. I think that's an unrealistic proposition. But a lot of that increase has been underwritten and actually pushed by the fact that the federal government continues to hand out loans like candy. And by the way, the Republicans have done nothing about this. They held Congress and the presidency for 2 years. They didn't even freeze these loans. They continued the upward march of these loans. Nobody wants to touch these loans, and Republicans have not even thought about freezing these loans.
You know what? You're right. There's a reason why they say Washington, D.C. is a cesspool and its tentacles, stretch all the way out there. Inez, we're going to be coming up on a break here. Can we hold you over for another segment?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, folks, you're listening here to the Conservative Commandos radio show. We're speaking with Inez Stepman, who is a senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. And she's talking to us about her article, The Biggest Higher Education Scam Isn't Hollywood Fraud, It's Academia Itself. And we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos studio and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Radio, Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7, and also on the AUN TV network in California. Folks, we've got to take a couple of minutes to pay some of our sponsors. And I've got Rick Trader on the other side, our executive producer, and I'm going to send it back his way.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together. Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh. Quick shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and seen on the stations of the AON television network in California. Our guest this segment is Inez Stetman. She's a senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, an organization that I support. Inez, thank you for holding through that break. I really appreciate your time. We're discussing your article, The Biggest Education Scam Isn't Hollywood a Fraud, It's Academia Itself. And, you know, I learned so much from our guests. That's why I love doing this show. And Inez, I cannot, thank you for your article because it just told me how big a part of education government has become. You write in your article, the federal government spends $75 billion a year on higher education, and taxpayers also hold the ultimate dance card for the $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loans. And Inez, I want to piggyback this with something that you wrote in another article that we'll discuss a little bit. Consider those numbers when, as you write in another article, the word education appears nowhere in the U.S. Constitution. It's mind-boggling. Just mind-boggling.
That's right. And it's interesting because in sort of education policy circles in D.C. and the swamp, the mere mention of the fact that the federal government has absolutely no role to play in education is sort of laughable or treated as unsophisticated, or how could you possibly think that? But I do think that this is the ultimate solution to a lot of our problems, is to reverse the flow of federal intervention, both in K-12 and in higher ed. And I understand that we can't get there overnight, but we should at least be, as conservatives, advocating for a smaller role every time, right? I'm kind of sick of being told that we must accept compromises. I'll accept compromises as long as they're going in the right direction. It seems like we're always being asked to accept compromises that are getting actively worse than our situation is at the moment, right? I'm willing to accept a compromise that takes us back in the direction of constitutional government, that returns more power to the states over education. But instead, that's just not even on the table a lot of the times, just like with these loans. freezing, let alone cutting, but freezing these loans at current rates is not even on the table, at least right now, as Republicans discuss reauthorizing the Higher Education Act that has a lot of this stuff in it. Instead, they're talking about, how do we hold schools accountable for these dollars, right? But nobody is saying, hey, maybe we need to actually start to at least freeze, if not reduce the number of dollars that the feds are actually spending in higher ed. It's the same thing in K-12. It's very, very hard to get rid of federal intervention. Once it starts, it only seems to grow.
It is also, I think this has an inflationary aspect to it. These schools, these colleges, these universities, they still believe that they have this rich Uncle Sam instead of the poor one that's $22 trillion in debt, that they can just write a curriculum, write a cost for that curriculum, as silly as many as these college curriculums are, and that Uncle Sam and the parents of these kids are going to pay whatever they want. And there's something else that I learned in your articles. If you want to talk about a rich uncle, we should be talking about the Harvard, the Yales, the Princetons, maybe the universities of Pennsylvania, because you write in your article that Yale University has a cool $26 billion laying around in endowments, and that's nothing compared to Harvard that has $39 billion laying around in endowments. It gives a new word to the or new definition to the words nonprofit. Am I right here?
Look, nonprofit is a status, and you can make as much money in nonprofit as you want, as long as you don't call it profit.
Really?
Harvard, Yale, a lot of these elite universities have enormous endowments that are currently not taxed, right? This is tax-free money. And I don't necessarily begrudge them their endowments. That's what their alumni are willing to donate. But I do question why we need to spend a single dollar of taxpayer money to send a single student to these universities when they have this much money lying around in their endowments. Presumably their alumni donated that so that they could make sure to make the university affordable. And yet most students are still taking their loans out from Harvard gets theirs. When my generation goes through a huge default crisis, because more than 50% of these loans right now are not in full repayment, right? So more than half of student loans are either in some kind of payment plan, or they're not making payments at all, or they're upside down, which means their principal is actually growing, right? So more than 50% of these loans are not in a good place to be repaid, and it's the students that have to deal with that. I'm not saying that they don't have the personal responsibility. Look, they did sign the documents. But I find it ridiculous to say that, Uncle Sam is going to pick up this check. The students are going to pick up this check. Everybody's going to be hurting because of this crisis. And yet the universities have walked away scot-free. They got their dollars as soon as you attended university. Yep. They got their dollars in the beginning of the semester. And yet they are, feeding mightily on this large pot of money that's been made available by the federal government.
Inez, I wanted to expand this conversation a little further because these numbers are staggering. $75 billion a year on higher education, that's what the federal government spends. $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loans. And we had a guest earlier in the week, and we talked about, and I wanted to get your opinion, an Annenberg study that showed the correlation between knowledge in the Constitution and a willingness to defend the independence of the judiciary, that this Annenberg study showed that less than a third of the college graduates out there knew what the three branches of our federal government are. What are we getting for all this money if they don't even know simple civics?
Look, that's something that shouldn't even have to be taught in college, right? That's something that should be taught in the K-12 level. And indeed, when Jefferson was one of the first public schooling advocates in the United States. When Jefferson advocated for what he called public schooling, which just to us actually just means public funds in K-12 going towards education. He actually did not envision the government actually building these schools or running these schools, just that they would underwrite education for those who could not afford it. When he argued for a public school system as he saw it, he said, look, we can't build a republic if we don't educate our students in their own constitution, in their own government system. They won't be able to shoulder those really heavy burdens of citizenship. It's both rights and responsibilities, right? We have a responsibility to be informed voters, to understand the system that has been bequeathed to us, and that fundamental responsibility is why we started paying for public school in the first place, and yet it is failing at that core responsibility, and in some ways worse, right? It's failing to educate Americans about basic constitutional facts, but it's also actively teaching them what I would call grievance and activism rather than a respect for the Constitution. It's become impossible to even say the purpose of public schooling is in fact to get you to understand and love your country. You don't have to agree with everything that's in place in your country. By no means am I saying that. Absolutely, you should be educated in how to use the power of your vote and your voice and your First Amendment to change things that you think are unjust in the country. But the whole purpose of this endeavor was to create educated citizens who were patriotic and loved their country.
Like I said, what are we doing with that money? Inez, we have to run. Inez Stepman, Senior Policy Analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. Before we leave you, please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your articles, and find out more about the Independent Women's Forum.
Absolutely. You can go to our website, iwf.org. That has a lot of great information. All of our op-eds and stuff end up there as well. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Inez Feltscher, FELTSCHER. That's on Twitter. And then my work is at the Federalist, federalist.com.
Inez, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you so much.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Don't go away. On this other side, we're going to have a longtime friend, Roger Aronoff, join us, and we're going to talk about the state of the U.S.-Israeli relations. Our alliance is strong. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right to vote. It's so it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled. It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And welcome back, everybody. You're watching the Conserve Commandos Radio Network show here. I happen to be your host. My name is Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and on the other side, we've got our executive producer, Rick Trader. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, you can check out our website at www.ccrshow.com. That's www.ccrshow.com. That's where you can hear the audio version, and you'll be able to watch the video version that's being broadcast on the AUN TV network all across California. Also, please like us, friend us, and follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Well, folks, I'd like to introduce our next guest. He is Mr. Roger Aronoff. He's the Executive Director and the Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger founded the Citizens Commission on Benghazi as well. He's produced and directed several documentaries and produced a weekly series on PBS called Think Tank with Ben Wattenberg. Roger, welcome back to the Conserve Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Nasser. Great to be with you.
Well, wonderful. Well, we want to talk to you about the article that you wrote. The state of U.S.-Israeli alliance is still strong. But give our folks, our viewers and listeners out there, what is it that you're doing at the Citizens Commission for National Security?
Well, the Citizens Commission on National Security began last year, sort of most of the people were part of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi that began 6 years ago. A group of retired admirals, generals, CIA people, former congressmen, a lot of expertise there, and we decided to do our own investigation on Benghazi at the time. But But last year we formed it as a separate new organization, Citizens Commission on National Security, added a couple new members, and a couple people left us. One who sadly left us earlier, a few months ago, was Admiral James Ace Lyons, who I believe is well known to your audience, and he was our senior member and our guiding light, and just an incredible man who I grew to know and love very much and talk to him almost every day. But anyway, the idea was that we are a national security watchdog organization, and we are looking at a number of issues that affect America's national security. And we plan a series of events, and we recently held our first major event, though we've been up on our website, CC for Citizens Commission, ccnationalsecurity.org. It's been up since last June, but just last month we held our first major event called the U.S.-Israeli Alliance and its National Security Implications. And it aired actually live for 5.5 hours, including 3 hours in prime time on JBS TV, which is the Jewish Broadcasting Service. It's on DirecTV, it's on Verizon Fios in parts of the country. It's really an outstanding network. When we told them what we were doing, they wanted to broadcast the entire event live, and that's what happened. We had Alan Dershowitz, and we had Ambassador Yoram Ettinger, a former Israeli diplomat. We had Cliff May of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. We had Claire Lopez and General Tom McInerney, Rand Fishbein, a former Senate staffer, and Steve Frank, a former civil appeals lawyer who was also on the board of the Lawfare Project, and Morris Amate, former State Department official who later became the head of AIPAC. So it was quite a lineup, and really a fascinating day of panel discussions. The host, Rabbi Mark Golub, who is the CEO and founder of JBS TV. So that's the broad outline of what we did. We have future ones planned that we are going to do on such matters as border security and how that affects our national security, election integrity, China, you name it. We're going to look at Iran. Is global warming really a national security threat? We don't think so, but I know a lot of people do. So, but just to give you an idea, so that's to answer your first question.
Are you privy to sort of anything that's happening with? I mean, we've been hearing throughout this whole thing that Jared Kushner, obviously, the President Trump's son-in-law, has been involved in a lot of different policies. The reshaping of NAFTA and how that really turned out well. Also, I think centering some of the things with the initial talkings with. Mexico and the Mexican president. What's been happening, or are you hear sort of ears to the ground? Have you been hearing anything at all in terms of this sort of, Israeli-Arab, peace sort of, summit or agreement that's being tried by the Trump administration?
Yes, absolutely. They claim to have a peace plan that they were ready to present, and then they decided to hold off until after April 9th, which is the date of the new Israeli elections, which has been complicated by the plans to indict Netanyahu. Yes. So that's an interesting aspect. So that was definitely one of the panel discussions that we had that day, the potential of the new peace plan. And generally, our group of experts felt that, why this time, after 7 other times that the Palestinians have rejected a statehood, and they're never going to get an offer as good as they got in either 2000 or 2008, when they were offered half of Jerusalem and 96% of the West Bank, and they rejected it every time. They've rejected it 7 times over the last century, really. And so now with the Palestinian government divided, Hamas controlling Gaza, the Palestinian Authority controlling the West Bank area. So you have this situation where it's just not even believable that they're going to ever get a deal as good as the ones that they were offered most recently in 2008 by when Ehud Olmert was the prime minister of Israel.
I'd say never underestimate the power of President Trump and what he's sort of working in the back. And obviously, like, he's got the people that are working on something out there. Hopefully, like you said, it hasn't worked the last 7 times that things have been offered to the Palestinians. Let's hope that the 8th time or whatever is going to be a charm.
Well, Nasser, unfortunately, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We've lost contact with our guest, Roger Aronoff. Let's do this, Nasser. Let's take our break. Let's try to get reestablished with Roger after this. But you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We're going to, as I mentioned, try to reestablish our contact with Roger Aronoff, Executive Director and Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh. And Nasser, we had a little technical problem before we went to the break. We lost contact with our guest, Roger Aronoff. Roger's back with us, but via phone. Skype let us down, unfortunately. So how about, Nasser, you kind of re-ask your question of Roger and give Roger an opportunity to answer it. So to you, Nasser.
All right, thanks, Rick. Yeah, Roger. My question was.
Let me just say, our guest this segment is Roger Aronoff. He's the executive director and editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. And with that, Nasser, I'll swing it to you.
Not a problem.
To ask your question.
So, Roger, the question I was going to ask is also as part of the symposium that you had. What was the thought process of this growing BDS movement that's been coming on board on many college campuses? You know, there's so many left-wing activists that are approaching, that it's going on in almost every college, university that you can think of. And not only on our college campuses, but also within, government entities itself, like, for example, the United Nations, and other, people as well. So this boycott, divestment, and sanctions, how has it affected Israel?
Well, it's really terrible. It's an extension of basically the 100-year-old Arab League boycott of Israel. That's sort of a modern-day incarnation of that is really a vessel for modern anti-Semites who want to portray Israel as some kind of apartheid country, which is the farthest thing from the truth. As I'm sure you're aware that, the Arab citizens who live in Israel have all the freedoms. They're on in Knesset, they're on the Supreme Court, they have freedom of speech, far more so than they do in virtually every Arab country that exists there. But there's this idea that they need to be brought to heel like, say, South Africa was. That was kind of the model, and, the apartheid comparison that people make. And it's a place where the left has lined up with the Islamists, which we call the red-green axis that takes place, and it's on campuses. There's a lot of pressure on musicians and Hollywood people to boycott Israel, to not go give performances there, and it's just really, I would call it just vicious anti-Semitism. It really is what it is, and so a lot of states have recently passed laws that says we're not going to contract with businesses that practices BDS, and so the ACLU. This is one of the things that Alan Dershowitz talked quite a bit about, how the ACLU has really just become this. He called them the villainous organization because they've lined up with this idea that what these states are trying to do is prevent free speech, that people shouldn't be able to criticize Israel, but that's not what it's about at all. It's about not being able to discriminate against Israel. Just, they can say whatever they want to say. And so Congress recently, in the Senate, they passed this bill, even though 23 people voted against it, to give the states protection when they do pass those sort of bills, which I believe 26 states have now passed, and I think this is pending in the House. But so that's kind of where that issue stands, and we did discuss that quite a bit during our symposium. And again, all of this symposium can be watched on our website, ccnationalsecurity.org. There's some great panels, and Dershowitz's speech, he really ripped into the ACLU, an organization that he pointed out he used to be on the board of. But, now, like I say, he said they're in the hands of radical, hard leftists. That's his terms, not mine. And so, anyway, that's kind of what's going on with BDS.
Well, Rick, we've got Rick Trader, our executive producer, on the other side, and I know he's got some questions for you, Roger, so I'm going to send it to him and let him go ahead.
All right, Nasser, good talking to you.
You too as well, Roger.
Our guest this segment is Roger Aronoff. He's the Executive Director and Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Good friend of the program, longtime friend of the Conservative Commandos. Roger, great to speak with you again.
Rick, great to be with you again. Been too long.
It has been a while. We missed you, Roger. Roger, in your article, you talk about a resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives that was initiated by Democrats, embarrassed under the pressure because of an increasing body of anti-Semitic utterance from Congressman Omar, the freshman senator from Minnesota. Give us your reflection of the comments, number one, the comments that Representative Omar said, and then the Democrat reaction to it.
Yeah, she's a congresswoman. She actually took Keith Ellison's seat, and that, showing that this really existed in the party even before this recent group of freshman congressmen came in, where he had an alliance years ago with Louis Farrakhan, and very noted anti-Semite, and so these people came in and they've said some really awful things about. They talked about how it's all about the Benjamins, is one of her comments. That the
yeah. What do you think she meant by that? Could you give her audience? Roger. One of the things I say constantly here at Conservative Commandos is I learn so much from our guests. And when I heard this comment about the Benjamins, I'm trying to think, what did she mean by that? Tell us about the Benjamins.
Well, there was a movie, it's all about the Benjamins. Benjamins mean $100 bills, so it's all about the money. And her point was that these people are getting money from Israel and from AIPAC to support Israel. And that's what it's based on. That was her implication. It's like, put some money out, and these people, the Jews especially, will go for it, and so this is what she was implying. And she talked about other things. The Jews have a hypnotic spell, and over much of Congress, and so she's made a number of references along those lines, and really when you go back farther, and before she knew she was going to be a national figure, it's even worse than that. And then the other one, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, and then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, has built up a little bit of a record herself for saying things like that. So
I love her. I love her. She gives us so much to talk about on a daily basis here.
It's true.
Roger Aronoff, she's the gift or the gaff that keeps on gafting and giving. We have so much fun with her. Roger, you also write in your article about this resolution. Sadly, most Republicans supported the watered-down version. However, one congressman who's a friend of this show, who was willing to criticize this charade, was Louis Gohmert of Texas, who called out Congress for what was going on. Could you talk about that, please?
Yes, and that clip, the video clip of Louis Gohmert talking about it, is in my piece, so you can see it, and it was just fiery, and he just got up there and basically made the point that this resolution was something brought up by Democrats. The idea was to condemn anti-Semitism and to name Ilhan Omar by name, but it ended up, once they got into committee, then they threw in everything, so it's against hatred of anything and everything. So it's kind of completely watered down. He says, so I'm going to vote against this thing. But I feel that most of the Republicans voted for it because they were afraid if they didn't, they would be, on CNN would be out there saying, "Oh, he refused to condemn hatred," and
the old double sword, is at work there. Hey, Roger, I wanted to bring up another point you made in your article. You said the conference was timely as a new peace plan from the Trump administration is reportedly ready to be released shortly after Israel's national election. And I wanted to bring up the Israel election. The last time Bibi Netanyahu was out or up for re-election, that old Barack Obama really tried to interfere in that election. I was wondering if he's reared his ugly head there again in Jerusalem.
Well, if he has, I haven't heard about it, but wouldn't be surprised if there were some lefties, some Obama people pulling the strings with this attorney general, not the attorney general, but the minister from the Justice Department, who basically said, yeah, we're looking to indict Netanyahu. Now, it's going to take a while to do this, but, this is over a couple of issues that supposedly he did favors for certain news organizations in exchange for their support, and the third one had to do with him taking gifts of champagne and cigars, and so look, he denies any corruption in this, and the interesting thing is that he ended up not doing these favors for these news organizations while others did, and yet so we'll see what happens. I mean, the polls have been both ways. This other group,
well, will all this put off any potential peace plan?
Pardon me?
Will all this and the accusations made towards Netanyahu, can you foresee this forestalling any new peace plan being presented by the Trump administration?
As I was saying during the first part of this interview, I really don't see this going any further than the previous ones, because really the bottom line is the Palestinians do not want to live side by side with a Jewish state. They want, as they keep talking about, from the river to the sea, and that's how they envision Palestine being liberated, meaning taken over by them. They want 5 million so-called refugees, the right of return, which is never going to happen. Again, while Hamas controls Gaza, there's no deal to be had, and Jerusalem is not going to be offered under a Netanyahu administration. I think Trump is, he thinks he's a great deal maker, and he's done some great things, no question about it. But on this, I think it's kind of a fool's errand, because they're going to fail on this. And they may try offering a whole lot of money to the Palestinians to get them to go along with it, but in the end, I don't see this succeeding any more than any of the other attempts, and even has a much less chance, in my opinion. And it could be harmful. Might be a difficult one for the Israelis to accept. Even the Palestinians may finally get wise and say, yes, we'll take this. And then just kind of start from there, pocket that, and then go from there, which I've been surprised that they haven't done in the past. But it's pretty clear that they like the situation as is, claiming to be victims of an occupation that doesn't exist. And
hey, Roger, we only have another. We only have another minute, and I wanted to ask you about another point you have in your article. You're writing here, Iranian-backed Hamas began launching rockets from Gaza towards Tel Aviv this week, the first time in 5 years. Can you make a connection about the Hamas being emboldened by the actions of these 2 or 3 congresswomen who are supporting Palestine and disrespecting Israel, if you will. Is there any connection there? Can you think, Roger Aronoff?
I couldn't make such a connection. I mean, I condemn both acts, but to connect them, look, they've been firing rockets. It's just they've been generally not firing them toward Tel Aviv, the most populated city in Israel, and but who knows, what the motivation of the people that did that day, whether that was inspired by what's going on here. I couldn't make that connection, but I certainly condemn the act.
All right, Roger Aronoff, Executive Director and Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. As you said, it's been a while since we've had you on. I know you have been getting the Citizens Commission on National Security together. We want to thank you for joining us. Roger, please tell our audience how they could find out more about the Citizens Commission on National Security and keep up with what you do. Keep up
Thank
with
you so
what
much.
you do.
Yes, you can go to ccnationalsecurity.org. That's CC for Citizens Commission, nationalsecurity.org. Sign up to receive our emails. Not quite daily yet, but we're building that up, and but there's a lot of good stuff, articles by Alan West and Claire Lopez and others on there that I think you'll really like the articles that we've been putting out there, and support us financially if you can. We're really trying to do some great stuff for this country and in building on the national security and strengthening the national security of this country. That's our goal. Take a look at our members. It's quite an impressive list. And Rick, thank you for what you're doing. You've been working so hard at this for so many years, and I have great admiration for you.
Thank you so much. Roger, we got to run, but thank you so much. Take care and God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show. And Nasser, it's been another great show with you. I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. Please tell our audience how they can follow what you do when you're not here at Conservative Commandos.
Thanks, Rick. Well, they certainly can follow me at Facebook, The Nasser Sheikh Show. That's The Nasser Sheikh Show. Or they can go to email me as well. Get a lot of emails. The Nasser Sheikh Show 1 at gmail.com. That's The Nasser Sheikh Show 1 at gmail.com. Or you can Twitter me at Nasser Sheikh Show. That's at Nasser Sheikh Show.
I also want to thank our guest, Michael Berry, Inez Stepman, our most recent guest, Roger Aronoff. But for right now, we got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Beto O'Rourke joins Elizabeth Warren in calling for the elimination of the Electoral College, saying there's a lot of wisdom in that. Really? Also, a new poll has come out painting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as the villain in the Amazon debacle, and she doesn't like that at all. Finally, Trump weighs in on yet another incident of social media bias. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
Okay, so the other day, Elizabeth Warren announced in a CNN town hall, and we'll get to a little bit of her comments, that the Electoral College has to go. You know, it's just bad, it's outdated, the same old, left-wing talk. And yesterday, Beto joined her in calling for the elimination of the Electoral College. And here's what Beto had to say regarding this institution. He said, I think there's a lot to that, because you had an election in 2018 where the loser got 3 million more votes than the victor, O'Rourke said in a video posted online. It puts some states out of play altogether. They don't feel like their votes really count. If we really want everyone to vote, to give everyone every reason to vote, we have to make sure that the votes count and go to the candidate of their choosing. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. All right, that was yesterday. The day before, Elizabeth Warren was speaking at a CNN town hall. You know, they've been doing these infomercials for all the Democrat candidates. And this time it was Elizabeth Warren, and she was asked about not only, the Electoral College and voting, but voter suppression and all these, evil things that Republicans must be doing to keep down the vote. And here's what she had to say at her town hall. Every vote matters, and the way we can make that happen is that we have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College, Warren told an audience at the historically black Jackson State University in Mississippi. I believe we need a constitutional amendment that protects the rights to vote for every American citizen and make sure that the votes get counted, she said. We need to put some federal muscle behind that, and we need to repeal every one of the voter suppression laws that are out there. Oh my gosh. First of all, there are no voter suppression laws out there, and everybody already has a constitutional right to vote. Man, woman, doesn't matter. 18 or over, as long as you're not a felon, you can vote. And as far as voter suppression, making sure that only the proper people vote is part of the American Republic. If we build this whole country off of this sanctity of voting, we need to make sure it's right. So people can take one, afternoon out of every couple years to get a voter registration card or some kind of ID card that is not that big of a hassle to ensure that voting is proper and legitimate. And this idea that we have to repeal all these voter suppression laws is simply appealing to the base that where she was and trying to score cheap political points. But let's get to the core of the matter. Why are they doing this? In recent weeks, we've seen a number of bizarre claims from the Democrats and from the left. They want illegals to vote. They want people 16 years old to vote. Now they want the Electoral College, which has been brought up in the past. And the reason they do that is because they win on the popular vote, because you have population centers in these that become massively liberal, massively concentrated, and they control elections. And do we really want the country to be controlled by major cities? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. All these major cities across the country, Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, Oakland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they're controlled by the left. And you see the pathetic nature of these cities, how some have even claimed, declared for bankruptcy. The crime is outrageous. The cities are poorly run. And yet that is the influence, the mentality that they want to run the entire country. But the founding fathers, had a great idea when they came up with the Electoral College. And I just wanted to give you some background on that because it really makes a lot of sense. In fact, it makes, more sense than you really need to think about how genius they were when they came up with this. Now, there were a number of reasons for installing the Electoral College, and one of them was based on this equity between the large states and the small states. Just like you had the debate between the House and Senate, and how the Senate became 2 votes for every state, so there was equal representation, and the House was based on population. The Electoral College is similar in that each state gets a certain number of votes based on the number of representatives and plus the 2 senators. So big states will always have more influence, but it's not the extraordinary, outrageous influence as if it were done strictly by population. The other thing that the founders were against, and Alexander Hamilton wrote about this in Federalist 68, so check that out, Federalist paper number 68, where he talked about the Electoral College. And as much as they feared a tyrannical government, The other thing that they did not want is a democracy for America, direct democracy where people elected the president directly, because they felt that that could lead to mob mentality, mob rule, where vocal groups controlled everything. They wanted a republic, if we can keep it. And that's what we got. And so because of that, they thought that they would insert this extra layer where people in each state voted for electors that could be, calm and wise and think through the issues and then make their vote. Now that's kind of changed, because now as the states, go either Republican or Democrat, electors are usually, even in many states, bound by law to carry out the will of the people in that state. They're not free to choose kind of among themselves, even though some do. So that part has changed, but it's this extra level that gets it away from just a mob mentality. And it's a very wise to read Alexander Hamilton again in Federalist 68, but it really talks about that reason. And also you need to remember that America is a union of states, okay? Federal government comes second. It's states' rights that govern first. The whole Constitution was designed to say, okay, we're a bunch of states, let's put this power to the federal government. And as the 10th Amendment states, everything else is resolved or reserved for the states. I mean, here, let me put this up. This is the 10th Amendment right here. It says, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Power to the people and to the states. That's number one. And thus, when we have a presidential election, the only election for a nationwide public official, that election is done by the states. People say, oh, you have to win the popular vote. Well, guess what? You do. President Trump won the popular vote in 30 states compared to Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote in only 20. So when they talk about the popular vote, he did it in 30 different states, and that's why he won. And that's why we need to keep the Electoral College, so we can avoid population centers run by the left controlling absolutely everything.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
We're about to learn that the Mueller investigation has revealed nothing, found no proof of collusion, and this entire fantasy has now come to an end. After 2.5 years of wasting our time, damn near wasting and ruining a presidency, and having all sorts of negative implications for this administration for the rest of its life. But now we're getting further information about how this whole controversy about so-called Russian collusion started. And it is absolutely sickening. And it's the opposite of what any of us believed and what the narrative was. The narrative, as you'll recall, is that Hillary's campaign hired Fusion GPS, that in turn hired Christopher Steele, an intelligence agent, to research the Kremlin's involvement with Donald Trump, and that after extensive research, this highly reputable intel officer came up with a dossier that spelled out chapter and verse the collusion between Russia and Trump. This was then given to Senator John McCain's aide, who gave it to the FBI, and in turn also gave it to the media, and the FBI gave it to the media, and this leaked out and became the basis of the entire investigation that's been going on ever since before Trump's election. This is all completely backwards. From the testimony, the Nunes Committee, the House Intel Committee, has now gotten sworn testimony covering 80 or 100 hours. It now emerges that Steele did not write the dossier, nor did Fusion. What happened was that Nellie Orr, the wife of Bruce Orr, the number 4 person at the Justice Department, who is on the staff at Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson and his wife, all funded by the Hillary campaign, made up a fantasy story of Trump colluding with the Russians. A fantasy story because there were no sources, there was no proof, the allegations were completely fanciful, in the words of Chairman Nunes, quote, made up out of whole cloth, unquote. To give you an idea of how little authenticity there was in these charges, in the course of posting the stuff on the internet in various bits and pieces, some guy logged on and gave an additional element to the story, just in effect, what if this and this were the case? And they took that and they threw it in too. That's in the dossier as well. So this entire thing was conceived in bits and pieces by the campaign to put it together. Then once they made this phony document with no pretense of being reality, they needed somebody to put his name on it who would lend it some credibility and give him a chance of getting it out there somehow. So they got a hold of Christopher Steele, a reputable former intelligence agent, and paid him to say that he wrote the dossier. In depositions since, Steele has claimed he did not write the dossier, and that is very problematic and troubling given the fact that his name is on it. But apparently he was just paid to put his name on it and to lend his credibility to it and to use his access to the FBI, Senator McCain's office, and the American media to get that out there in public, where it could become a factor in the presidential election, undermining, perhaps impeaching the Trump presidency. But it was entirely made up. There was no substance to it at all, and never was any substance. Yet it was this document that was used as the basis for FISA warrants on Carter Page and other members of Trump's campaign team, which would inevitably lead to their conversations with other people in the Trump headquarters. And it was this document leaked to David Kramer of McCain's staff, who then gave it to Comey, and that then made its way from Comey to President Obama, to Donald Trump, and out to the media, so that it was released to the media in December and January as Trump was preparing to take office. The media, and nobody could believe that it was as fanciful as it turned out to be, and yet then they had to take it seriously. And it then became the basis for repeated news articles confirming these facts and substantiating them, all put out there as part of a conspiracy by FBI agents led by Strzok and Lisa Page, the two lovers who were involved with each other. The technology assistance of Andrew Cabe, who was in charge of counterintelligence, and was put out there as, quote, insurance in the event Trump won the election. And then when he did win the election, as part of an ongoing campaign of sabotaging of Trump to undermine his transition and make it hard as president, this is absolutely breathtaking. It's beyond belief. You know, Eileen and I wrote the book Rogue Spooks, the intelligence war on Donald Trump. We predicted a lot of this stuff. We said the dossier was phony. We said that it was probably concocted by Steele and Fusion GPS and put out there as a way of destroying the Trump presidency. But nobody could possibly have imagined that this was purely an out-of-whole-cloth creation by operatives of the Hillary Clinton campaign. It amounts really to the dirtiest trick and the biggest hoax that has ever been perpetrated in the history of presidential elections. And it is this hoax, this fraud, that really needs to be investigated. And those who perpetrated it on the American people in the height of an election need to be held responsible for it.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, let's move on. We need to talk about a new poll. As you know, on Monday's show, we talked about how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is losing support almost across the board. I'll put this chart up there that shows that in almost every major demographic except for Democrats and non-whites, she is losing. I mean, so this means that among women, her unfavorability has grown, okay? She's losing support among millennials and on and on and on. So now a new poll has come out, and the Hill reports on it the other day, and here's what they had to say. It says, almost 40% of New Yorkers voters in a new poll believe Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez bears responsibility as a villain in Amazon's decision to back out of its plan to put a second headquarters in Queens. The Siena College poll, which was released on Monday, found that 38% of respondents thought of the freshman lawmaker as a villain when they were asked to consider her role in the tech giant's exit. The survey asked respondents to identify figures in the Amazon debate as either a hero, villain, or role player. 12% thought AOC was a hero, while 24% said she was a role player. Okay, this is what she tweeted following Amazon's withdrawal from their deal to put that headquarters right there near her district. Anything is possible. Today was a day a group of dedicated, everyday New Yorkers and their neighbors defeated Amazon's corporate greed, its worker exploitation, and the power of the richest man in the world. Okay, her big beef, that she got all up in arms about was that New York was offering $3 billion in tax incentives and tax, deferred credits over, I believe, a 10-year period, okay? The Amazon deal was estimated to bring in 25,000 jobs and close to $30 billion, almost a 10-to-1 return on the investment to bring Amazon there. And yet that's what she fought. So these polls come out now and has her all up in arms, the one that I mentioned on Monday, and then this one. And here's what she had to say about her latest blasting and latest disapproval. She says, when centrists care more about the GOP base than the Dem base, bigotry gets legitimized. This is the playbook. GOP does it virtually with every Democrat figure who isn't a white male. Otherize, demonize, and splinter. It's vital that we adapt and dismantle this approach, not cow to it. Okay, so she's referencing a tweet by David Atkins, who wrote, it's interesting to see centrists subtly downplay or ignore the effects of racism, sexism, and Fox News targeting when discussing AOC's overall approval rating. So basically what they're saying there is that the only reason that AOC's poll numbers are going down is because of sexism, racism, and Fox News has made her a target. Well, as you can see from the polling, she's going down in every group. Groups that would tend not to even watch Fox News. The reason she's going down is because she's saying ridiculous things. And they immediately blame it on racism or sexism. So you have to, be with her. If you think she's nuts, if you think the things she says are insane, then guess what? You have the problem. You're a racist. You're a sexist. You're some Fox News, hack or, devotee or whatever. And that's it. You can't have a logical reason for disagreeing with her. You can't think, oh my gosh, you're absolutely nuts. Your facts don't make any sense. They don't add up. They're flat out wrong. Yet people like us, we're the bad guys. So anyway, it's just crazy. But all right, now President Trump has come out and addressed a growing issue, and that is the censorship of conservatives in the media and on social media. And here's what he had to say from a press conference just yesterday.
I have many millions of followers on Twitter, and it's different than it used to be. Things are happening, names are taken off, people aren't getting through. You've heard the same complaints. And it seems to be if they're conservative, if they're Republicans, if they're in a certain group, there's discrimination and big discrimination.
All right, so that was in reference to the leader of the Federalist, who Twitter announced that he was shadow banned the other day accidentally. And for those of you who don't know, shadow banning means that you're not banned from posting or anything like that. You can post, you think it's all good, but no one sees your stuff. So it's basically as if you were flat out blocked from the platform. You think everything's okay, but no one can see. Your message doesn't get out. They're not doing that with the left, but they are doing it with the right, increasing numbers. And this one that they just had to, come out and apologize says it was accidental. It was a goof up. So anyway, that's our show for today, folks. Thank you for your support. Monday's show is doing great. Friday's show absolutely blew up, as top 300,000 views, and that's all because of you. So I just wanted to say thanks. Please tell your friends about it, and please subscribe. I'm Bobby Everly. This is a 13-minute news hour.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled. It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be. We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for healthcare.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.